Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to have a few minutes to let everyone come in. All right, we are at 7:05. We've got a good amount of people here, and several of our speakers have recently joined, our invited guests. I don't see Derek from MPD on the call. Is Derek on? No. Okay. So let me pull up the agenda. Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. How's everybody? Good, bad, up, surviving? I think that's pretty much the state of things right now. All right, let me, oh, that's what I want to do. Share my screen. Hold on. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So this is what we have on our agenda for tonight. Just in short introduction and welcome, I'll give you an update on a couple things. If Derek joins us, hopefully we can give an update on MPD. I've also asked Commissioner Fletcher to join us to talk about the crime prevention task force that ANC 5A is working on. As some of you may have seen from the email I sent out today, we are scheduled to have a Verizon wireless small cell tower placed in our SMD. And so I've asked somebody from Verizon to be here. And hold on a second, let me just let a couple other people in. We also have representatives from EYA. There's been some developments in that area as well. And so I've also asked somebody from Providence and DDOT to be here as well. Some of the issues are combined between EYA, Providence, and DDOT. So I'm hoping to have a discussion amongst all three groups that we can facilitate amongst us. So that's our brief agenda. I don't see Derek on the phone yet. I'm going to stop screen sharing. But let me just go ahead since Commissioner Fletcher is here so he can share about the task force. Good evening, Commissioner Fletcher.
Good evening, Commissioner Lucio, and good evening, everyone. I see some familiar faces and names here, so I just want to say hello to everybody. I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to be as brief as possible because I know you guys have a very robust agenda. I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Lucio for allowing me an opportunity to just give some information around the Public Safety Task Force that has been started in ANC 5A. So just getting right to it, on April 22nd of 2020 at a duly executed, duly noticed public safety meeting for ANC 5A under the leadership of Ronnie Edwards, our chair, and all commissioners present, we voted to support the beginning and the creation of a public safety task force in 5A08. Since then, we've agreed to expand that task force to be all ANCs. And again, Commissioner Lucio has been nothing but a partner in this. And the main reason why the task force was first started was because, as many of you know, probably know about the pathway that connects 6th Street Northeast and Totten Mews. That's a development that sits in my SMD. And there's a pathway that connects it that really was not being used for much. However, there was a lot of assailants and crime going through there. And so we were working on connecting with Totten Mews HOA to just build a good community partnership to ensure that we could have some more safety measures put in place, such as lights. So we worked on that. Some of the issues that we've come to realize are there may be potentially, all group homes are not bad group homes, because group homes are also, they play a role, they play a purpose, but there are also some homes that maybe have created what we may consider a nuisance, but under the current DC law, DC code, it is not deemed a nuisance. So we're going to talk about that as well in the creation of this task force. We're looking to have a public safety meeting. Right now, tentatively, it's scheduled for Wednesday, February 17th. That may get pushed back because we want to ensure that we have all the proper individuals there, such as Derek. And so, I'm going to make sure I stay closely connected with Commissioner Lucio so that way she can provide everyone here with a proper notice. However, the big reason beyond me just giving some high-level information around what we're doing here with the Public Safety Task Force is just to do a simple call to action for anyone that would like to be more actively engaged in this process. This is something similar to the Orange Hat Patrol that was started many years ago. However, I also know that not everybody felt safe with being part of the Orange Hat Patrol because of one reason or the other. But nevertheless, we got some folks that still want that, such as Joe Bowser, who's in Mrs. Bowser, who's in my SMD, who really want that kind of community partnership with MPD and other agencies. I see Kelly from DDOT here, and she's been on some public safety walks with us. So that's what we want to do. We want to connect community members with MPD and other district agencies to ensure a high level of public safety. So I have about 5 or 6 people or residents in my SMD who are already interested in being part of it and have been actively a part of this task force. Now I'm coming here, I'm just doing a simple request. If there's anyone in Commissioner Lucio's SMD that would like to be a part of this and take a more active role, albeit safe, but active role in the overall safety of our community. That's pretty much it, Commissioner Lucio. Again, I don't want to take up too much time. I'll entertain any questions that however you want to conduct it. So thank you.
Thank you. So if anybody's interested in being part of the Public Safety Task Force that Commissioner Fletcher and I are working on, what I would suggest you do is email Commissioner Fletcher, since he's leading it, His email is 5a08@anc.dc.gov, and I can put that in the chat. Or you can email me as well. Let me just put that in here. And you can, if you have any other questions for him, you can also email him. He is also sort of keeping track of just different incidents that happen in the neighborhood, and working, both of us are working with MPD. So again, if you have an incident on your block that you'd like us to know about, we are happy to be the point of contact between you and MPD for that, and try and make our neighborhood safer. Go ahead.
And Carmen Williams. I want to make sure I recognize Carmen Williams at North Michigan Park Civic Association, because again, we're all working together. And Carmen, she's out there very quickly on the drop of a dime to assist residents, Commissioner Lucio, and myself in any way. So I just want to make sure I mentioned her name as well.
Yeah, and in terms of those who want to help, obviously being members of the Public Safety Task Force would be helpful. If anybody else wants to be involved in any other way in terms of promoting it, someone just mentioned about a flyer. If someone wants to design a flyer to help us do this, we are more than willing to take whatever help we can get in making this go forward. So thank you very much, Commissioner Fletcher. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, do we have Derek Staten on yet? Okay, we do not. All right, so let's move forward. I wanted to, let me just make sure I have, let me just make sure I have the right person on the call. Hold on. Is Erica, I think it's Yandick. Is Eric on the call from Verizon? Okay. Let me just see.
So I'm Candace Austin from Verizon.
Hi, Candace. How are you? Good. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. So I just wanted to let everybody know, I sent an email out today. I got a notification that there's going to be a Verizon cell tower placed on the 1000 block of Crittenden Street Northeast. So that's 10th and Crittenden, which is actually right by my house. So I wanted to give Verizon a chance to explain what it is, what the process is. I know there's another one going up in 5A02. And I heard from a resident, Candace, today that there is another one in my SMD that I was not going up in my SMD that I was not given notice of up on Allison Street. Correct, Enrique?
Yes. I'm trying to get off mute. Sorry.
Yes. 600 Allison Street.
600 block of Allison Street Northeast.
Yeah, I was not given notice of that. But it's my understanding that there's another one going up in that. So can you tell us a little bit about this and the program and what this means for the community and the impact to the community and sort of what it's like?
Sure. So hello, everyone. Again, my name is Candace Austin. I am the Director of State Government and Community Affairs for Verizon. So basically, I represent Verizon before elected officials and agencies and outside stakeholders on a number of issues, from our network transformation to 5G deployment to even community engagement. So talking to residents like yourselves on a day-to-day basis. And so one of those other tasks that I have is I monitor basically legislation and policies, and I work with our legal teams to ensure that our responses are timely and accurate to ensure that customers like yourselves receive the best service possible. And that's really key for us at Verizon. And then kind of the fun part of my job is I get to partner with nonprofits and different community-based organizations to support efforts like workforce development and STEM projects. And then just responding to the needs of underserved communities as well, especially in light of the current pandemic. And so one thing that I try to do is make sure that I start off talking about our website that we have, which is Improve Your Wireless /DC, which gives, and I'll make sure I add that to the chat along with my contact information, so you can learn a little bit more about 5G and what it means. So basically 5G, or some call it small cells, basically provides service in a faster speed and capacity for Verizon customers. And it's based basically on the needs of the residents in a particular area. And so right now everyone is on 4G. And so 5G is just basically the newest component of bringing connectivity to residents. And so what you see right now are existing 4G towers, and those are typically on poles that you see, and some people notice them, some people don't, but they're typically like a box towards the top of the pole. And basically it provides customers with more capacity for their devices. And so one of the things I thought I would talk about today is just give you kind of a quick overview of like the site selection process, because again, this is something that a lot of residents ask us on a day-to-day basis of how they're selected. So basically, Verizon engineers look at an area over, I mean, these studies have gone back pretty far to identify the needs of wireless service improvements in an area based on the user demand that I spoke about in the area and the current wireless assessments in the area. So then the wireless real estate team identifies candidates that need to meet those network requirements and then also complying with DC government regulations. And then from that point, we basically put in a reservation for a light pole. Typically it's a Pepco light pole structure. And then we notify residents of pending applications and that we're planning to do that. So the notifications that you may receive in the mail is kind of an alert that we have to do in compliance with the DC government, letting the community know of the pending application. And so we then submit applications to DC to basically co-locate our small cell facility on a light pole. And so we're working with Pepco, and you may sometimes receive a notification from Pepco as well, stating that a light pole may be removed or a light pole may be replaced in order to install those small cell antennas. So from that point forward, DDOT, along with various agencies, review the permit application to make sure that we are in compliance to the regulations. And then they issue a permit if the site is in compliance with those requirements. So it's a long process that we go through, and we definitely work with DC government to make sure that we're adhering to everything that they have set forth in the master licensing agreement. And then from that point forward, and it could be 30 to 60 days, but from that point forward, we then start the installation process, and that installation process could take up to a week.
Candace, I apologize. I just wanted to share that I'm sharing my screen so that people can see what it looks like. This was the diagram that was sent to me.
Okay. And then I have a picture, but again, I can just show everyone from the Improve Your Wireless website too, so you can see kind of a live, like this is a markup, but like a picture of one that's in an actual neighborhood.
I can let you share your screen if you want to do that.
Let me see if I can go to Improve Your Wireless. Give me 1 second. All right.
And Candace, so let me ask you a question real quick. So you had mentioned that there's currently 4G on existing poles. Why wouldn't you just put the 5G on an existing pole and replace it with the 4G as opposed to creating a new pole?
So in some places we are doing that. In other places, based upon what Pepco may look at that pole and they may say that pole needs to be replaced. But there are situations where we are putting replacing that with a new, node, small cell node. So for instance, right now in the location that you're talking about, Pepco's permit to do the pole work has been issued. So now Verizon has a permit, and we submitted that back in, I guess, the beginning. What are we? Oh no, like a couple days ago. I keep forgetting we're at the beginning of February, which is why you received letters. And so though everyone that's in kind of close proximity to where that small cell deployment takes place will receive a letter. So anyone in that adjacent area of where the pole will be placed will receive some type of notification from us.
So, okay, so just to clarify, so all the residents in the area should receive a notice, right?
In the within that block. So
Okay.
within the block, they should.
Okay, and as a commissioner, I received the one about the one going on 10th and Crittenden, but I did not receive the one about that other residents got a notice on about at 6th Street between Allison and Barnum.
Okay. Okay. Let me check into that, because again, you should have, if they received a notification, you should have received one as well.
Yeah, I've already had a couple residents actually just now tell me that they received a notice about that one.
Okay.
So,
And what happens as well in the DDOT system, and again, I think I walked Commissioner Edwards, who I spoke to last week, about it through this system. You could go into the DDOT system and see where permits are placed, because we have to actually report that, as well as the addresses in which, receive notifications. That's a part of our agreement.
And so do residents in the area have any ability to work with you if they're not wanting the tower in that area?
So they can always address their concerns or any issues they may have with DDOT. DDOT has requested that residents, do that. They cannot say like, no, I don't want this pole, and DDOT will be like, okay, no, that's not kind of how DDOT operates. But any issues that you may have, you can always express them to DDOT. And then again, because we're in such close contact with them and we have conversations with them all the time, they will alert us. And sometimes we can look at things and say, okay, well, it's not actually right here. So we've had situations where people will say, oh, the pole is going to be right outside my window. Sometimes it's just an address that is put in the system. It may be across the street. It may be a little bit further than what they are actually thinking, but we have to have some type of location or marker of some sort, but it could actually be across the street. So
Okay,
it just varies.
Okay, and you said you had a picture of one?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes.
That's
So
okay. I made you a co-host so you could share the picture.
okay.
Hey, Emily, I know there are a lot of folks on this meeting, so you may not be able to see when people's hands are up, but
I do see you, Ann. Go ahead.
Okay, while Candace is looking for the picture to share, the question that I have is, how is this more powerful cell service for Verizon customers going to affect people who do not have Verizon cell phone service?
Because
specifically, is there going to be any degradation to the service we receive because we are now being bathed in these more powerful Verizon signals?
Well, and actually, I had a question that sort of piggybacks on that as well. Is that, does this mean now that we're going to get, representatives from Sprint and AT&T also wanting to put, things up in our neighborhood near these?
So there are other carriers that are also, deploying their 5G throughout the city. But again, DDOT is monitoring that. They definitely make sure that we are not on top of each other. Forgive me because I don't have the exact number of feet or how far, but it's pretty far how we have to be distanced out. Like we can't be on the same block. But again, so some of our nodes are in the public right of way. So that means that anyone that is in any kind of open space, or say you're at a library or anything like that, can take advantage of the 5G service. If you are, say at a library or at the Starbucks or wherever you may be, you'll be able to utilize that service.
So in terms of the one that's scheduled to go in, I'm sorry, Anne, did you get your question answered? I want to make sure that you got your question answered.
I did not. My question was, how is this installation going to interfere with the cell phone service for people who don't have Verizon?
No, it will not.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So then looking at these pictures that you're showing, they're all being placed on what look like existing light posts. If there is not an existing light post in the vicinity that you're talking about, you're planning on putting in a whole new pole, is that correct?
So it depends. In that area, I'm not quite sure because again, I'm not on the ground. But when I spoke to my engineers, because I specifically asked about your neighborhood, and I'm trying to see if I can pull up a picture through my email. He actually sent me a picture of what it would look like, and it's a regular light street light pole. Let me see. I'm going to stop sharing real quick so I can see if I can find this other picture of one that he showed me it will mimic in your neighborhood. But based upon Pepco's assessment, if the pole needs to be replaced, they will replace it with a new pole that looks just like the one that may be in your neighborhood now. But then sometimes they may have to put a new pole. But again, I'm not quite sure of that. So I can look into it and definitely get back to you on it.
Okay, that would be helpful to know whether they're planning to use an existing pole or planning to put in a new pole. And you said that and it goes in 90 days in advance, 90 days notice. Is that what you said?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Candace,
Well, 30 to 60 days. I'm sorry. I got my numbers.
Okay.
I have a question. Chris Vilvac. Candace, is to your knowledge, is Verizon the first out of all the major cell phone people that are doing the 5G, their upgrades with these?
No, so I know that there are other carriers that have, they're in the process as well. But again, I just kind of pay attention to ours, and I don't speak for other carriers, but I just know that they are.
So the main question is, like someone else said, that we might have a whole bunch more telephone poles be put up, well, not telephone, but poles being put up in the area. I know when I was helping out working with NOMA, that they had this question too, when they were doing a lot of these upgrades, and you have 5 or 6 different cell phone people, and that could be a lot of extra poles being put up. So it is a legitimate question. Not like you can stop it, or we can really stop it, but I know NOMA had to basically get with DDOT and get with all the carriers and try to reduce the amount of poles it could do. It's a large undertaking to do.
Right.
I knew someone had that question, and I've seen it in DC because they were trying to get rid of as many telephone poles and overhead wires in central DC as possible. So
Got it. And so I was able to pull up one of the polls that my engineer shared with me. So this would be a typical look of the pole. And it's kind of like the existing pole that is up, but at the top would be one of the small cell nodes that sits there.
Okay. So at this point, you're anticipating sometime in March to this be done?
To start, right. And it just depends too, again, on the length of time dealing with weather, dealing with Pepco. Again, we just have to kind of wait and make sure that, everyone falls in line with the process. But
well, Groundhog says we're going to see 6 more weeks of winter, so it may be a while. So, Okay, so Candace, I would appreciate it if you could keep me up to date on the status of this, when it's going to be starting, whether you anticipate them putting in a new pole or if they're going to use an existing pole. And as you get a better idea of the exact location, I would appreciate knowing that so that I can, make sure that the residents in my SMD know that.
Definitely will. And then I'll also look into this 600 block of Allison Street.
Right. It's 6th Street, right between Allison and Barnum.
Block of Allison. It's between 7th Street and 6th Place.
So Deidre, you said you got one too? Deidre, are you there? I see you. I don't see. Are you muted? Okay. Oh, there you are. Hi. I can't hear you though, Deirdre. Nope, I still can't hear you. You're off mute, but I can't hear you. But she said in the chat that it was, I guess she chatted to me, that she received a letter for 6th and Varnum at the corner of her block. Those are roughly in the same area. So if you can check into that and let me know that, Candace, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, will do.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
No problem. And I'll put my email address in the chat, as well as the Improve Your Wireless website information. So if anyone has any questions, they can email me directly.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so now I would like to move on to talking with Evan and Jason from EYA, and also Nicole, sorry, from Providence. I believe she's also on the call.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Nicole.
Hello.
And I know Kelly's here from DDOT. I'd like to sort of just talk about everything all together. And also, Evan, I'm going to put you on the spot. I wanted to introduce Chris, and I thought you could tell everybody a little bit about Chris, since Chris is on the call. I can't hear you though.
Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. You wanted me to introduce Chris Vovak, you're saying?
Yes. Chris
Okay,
is a
got it.
resident in our SMD, but I wanted you to sort of clarify. Chris is taking on a special role with this EYA project, and I wanted you to sort of clarify that so everybody knows. And then Chris, perhaps you can put your contact information in the chat so that everybody knows how to reach you. That would be great.
Yeah, that's perfect. So thank you, Emily. Thanks everybody for having us this evening. Happy to be here, and we'll be as brief as possible. So what Emily was just mentioning, as part of our kind of good policies on construction management agreements, and Emily had mentioned this early on in one of our meetings, the idea of having a community liaison, somebody that lives in the SMD that has construction experience, that is somebody that we can work with, that can hear citizens' complaints and concerns and issues and help work with us to resolve stuff. And then we would do the same, get information to Chris so that he's always knowing where we're at on the project, what's going on, and can communicate that out. Because we won't be at every ANC meeting. We may be here from time to time, but he would be somebody that can coordinate between the residents and ourselves. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't also email us directly, call us directly, text my cell phone, as many have already been doing if there's any issues that come up, because we want to know about stuff right away. But Chris also could just be a good sounding board. Construction is, ultimately when construction's finished, usually you end up with a beautiful project in the end. But getting there can be dirty, it can be loud, it can be noisy, it can be disruptive. That's the nature of construction. And so what is helpful, having somebody in the neighborhood that you can talk to, is hopefully what you'll find is what we're doing is best practices and within the realm of normal. But if we are doing things that are outside of that, of course we want to know, and he, I'm sure, won't be shy about letting us know. And so Chris, you might want to just say who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Chris Vovak. I live across the street from the project. I've been in construction for over 20 plus years, working for a construction management firm right now. I've actually worked with EYA before for the St. Paul's project for the college. So I'm glad that we have EYA on the project because they're very good to work with. Their due diligence is, I'm glad that we have them. That's about it. I'm excited about the project. There are concerns, of course, for everyone, but at the same time, we're going on with the project.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Evan. Real quick before you continue, Evan, I neglected to mention earlier for everyone to know that we have a new commissioner in 5B05, which is right next to 5A03, and borders this development as well. And Colleen Costello is the new commissioner for that area, and I reached out to her to share this meeting information with her residents. So I don't know if residents from her SMD are on this call, but I just wanted to let you know. So there may be some from 5A and there might be some from 5B. So I just wanted to let you know that since they both border the property, but technically the property's in 5A03. So
Awesome.
Welcome to those who are from 5B.
There was a question in the chat. So the project we're talking about are the townhomes that just started construction behind the St. Joseph Seminary. So that's what that was about.
Thank you. So Evan, I don't know if you just want to give an update on status on where things are. I know that, a lot of people, there was a lot of chat within Brookland about the trees coming down, and I just want to make sure everyone's clear on what was laid out in the parameters of the guidelines of the project, what was allowed to be taken down, what was not allowed to be taken down. So I think there's questions related to that. I know some of you, we haven't met in a few months, but some of this is sort of old news, but some of you may have noticed that when the trailer came in, it was not in the right spot initially because it got stuck in the mud. But then it got moved. But as you since have seen, the fencing has come down around the property. There's a big pile of dirt that some kids used to sled on the other day. But yes, so this project is continuing to go forward. But one of the other questions that's come up which is part of why Nicole is here, not entirely, and part of why I wanted to include Kelly in this discussion as well is that there's a lot more truck traffic related to the project in the neighborhood. And some residents have asked about parking. So Evan, I don't know where you want to start, but if we could sort of touch on all those things, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we're prepared to talk about all those issues tonight. Let me introduce Jason Serino and Lauren Randall should be on the phone too, I think. And then Nicole Commodore, do you want to introduce yourself briefly too?
Sure, no problem. I'm Nicole Commodore, the Chief Advocacy Officer at Providence Health System. As you all know, we're still going through our transformation over at Providence and just wanted to be good neighbors in part working with EYA to help with some of the parking concerns and congestion with that. But I'll let Evan explain all that.
Yeah, perfect. So that's great. So during the entitlement process for a number of years, we with Providence from time to time and developed a nice relationship with them. And so when it came time to start this project, we had a conversation with them about potentially using some of the parking at the hospital for construction worker parking. And they've been great to work with, and we're willing, really in the name of dealing with a kind of a community concern, they're allowing us to use 50 parking spaces across 12th Street for construction worker parking. And so our agreement in our approved POD allows us to have construction parking in the spaces that directly border our site only. So for example, on Allison, they can park on the south side of the street, but not the north, and on Barnum on the north side of the street, but not the south. There's no parking bordering us on Sargent, 13th or 12th, as you guys know. And then the rest of our construction worker parking would need to be on site or off site somewhere. And so by having 50 spaces, which is more than what we would need, quite frankly, we think we'll end up using 35 to 40 directly across the street. It really, and by enforcing that through our contracts, by in our construction contractors with our general contractors and our subcontractors, it'll highlight the parking area where contractors should park. It should get most of that parking outside of the neighborhood. There still will be some construction parking on the border on Allison on the south side of the street, and from time to time, probably less so in Barnum, especially if people have heavy tools to carry and they want to be closer to the site. But that's going to be our main partnership, and I really want to thank the Providence folks for working with us on it, because it's great for the community and it's great for community building in general.
And we're happy to do it.
Thank you, Nicole. We do appreciate you doing that and being good neighbors in that respect. So that's very
No
helpful.
problem.
So on the other issues, I'll hit those quickly too. We did have a little bit of a presentation if Jason's on, but if not, I'm just going to hit them.
He is, and I gave him screen sharing.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Okay,
Evan,
so,
I don't know if we had a presentation, but we had some other items to touch on that have questions that have been asked and some updates.
So why don't you talk about the other items, and then then we can, if people want to see a plan just so that we can orient you, we'll pull that up as needed.
Well, yeah, and I think quickly to Emily's point at the beginning on trees. So it was discussed. So we do have a tree plan that's approved by DDOT Urban Forestry. The trees that you did see come down are approved to come down per that plan. There haven't been any taken down that shouldn't have been removed. The goal all along, there's these large mature trees, obviously along 12th Street, and we worked hard with DDOT to preserve most of those trees, all but one on 12th Street, one on Sargent, and one on Allison Street, basically where our roads connect to the project. So those large mature trees that were basically in public space or on the periphery of the site will remain. And then, the trees in front of on the south side of the seminary in the front of the building, that space is preserved as open space in perpetuity, not just for the time being. The project put an open space covenant around that area, so it remains as is. So I just wanted to give an update there, as it has been a question that has been asked. And then just a couple other quick things to give you guys an update. As Evan mentioned, and as you've seen, we have started site work construction. Our sales center is open and operating until we get our first buildings occupied, in which time we'll put a sales center in one of our townhomes, and the trailer will be removed. We plan to start vertical construction in the second quarter of this year. Lauren, let me know if I'm off there, but I believe that's the timing. And it typically takes us, 5 to 6 months, probably closer to 6 months on the first building. And then the buildings start being completed in a little bit quicker time frame from the point you see them starting with the foundations. And so, we'll start delivering homes end of this year, early 2022, and as fast as we can sell them, we'll build them, and we just kind of keep building on until we're sold out and completed at that point. So that's kind of the high level construction update on just schedule and when we're going to hit some of these milestones. We are there has been some questions asked and inquiries on the tax relief fund contribution that we're making and what that program is and how it will be administered. We will in the next couple of weeks be making that contribution to housing counseling services at the city. It is per the approvals, and frankly this is their area of expertise, and what they do across the city is programs like this. They will administer those funds, advertise for those funds, and how you can apply for them and obtain them. So we have reached out to them again recently. They're going to share with us their application form, and I think they're putting a flyer together, and then it will be disseminated throughout the community to the folks who are eligible, in the boundaries of the area that was identified in the PUD. So look for that soon. Housing counseling services can, aside from administering this program and these funds, also work to help homeowners, stay in their homes, deal with deed issues that may exist due to turnover of property or properties being left to somebody in a will or others, which is something they see quite often. So they're there to help in many regards. And so they'll be an asset to folks in the neighborhood.
Jason, is there a radius of that?
There is a map, and if you give me a second, I can show you. And then as I'm pulling that up, just the other thing that has come up and questions that have been asked is the residential parking permit program. So some of you—
I was going to ask about that, so thank you.
Yep, some of you may have seen it through the petitions going around the neighborhood for the RPP status on several, I think it was 5 or maybe it was 6 blocks around the project. That application was submitted for the areas that signed the petition last week, and we're working with the administrators of that program in the city now, trying to determine a timeline. We did get a response that basically when we first asked that, they would notify us when the signs were going up and where to go get your parking permits, but we've asked for a little bit more detail and what to expect and how long that will take.
Can I clarify something on this, Jason, real quick? So just to let everybody know, so EYA reached out to me to collect the signatures, and I designated a person on each block that they had listed that were part of the process. And they're all pretty much the surrounding blocks and those really close by to the property. And so there was a point person on each block to collect signatures for their block. They submitted those petitions with the signatures to me, and I signed off on them and then submit them to Jason and Evan. Here's the thing about this, and we've gotten a number of questions about this, is that these permits are for the residents who currently live in the neighborhood. The residents who are going to purchase homes on the EYA property will have parking associated with their property. As an HOA, if they choose, and Jason or Evan, tell me if I'm wrong, if I get any of this wrong, but my understanding is that there are also visitor parking spaces in there as well, and temporary spaces, right? And if the HOA votes collectively to become a RPP and have their own RPP permit, right? So they would be part of this RPP within that area, which means that then they could use the RPP spaces that are labeled on the street. Then they would forego the access to those guest spaces on their property as being private. Those then would become public. Did I get that right?
And one other thing that I would add is, you can't get an RPP sticker unless your house fronts on a public street. And so since the houses in the development are on private streets, they right now, based on DC regulation, they can't even get an RPP sticker. So the only houses that could get an RPP permit would be the 4 or 5 houses along Allison Street that would have an Allison Street address. So the rest of those houses can't get an RPP. So the chances of the HOA voting to make their visitor parking public, when only 6, let's say, of the 80 houses can get RPP stickers is essentially 0. That would never happen. So that was a fail-safe measure during our negotiation with the community way back to make sure that if you guys do RPP, our residents won't have access.
Great. Jason, real quick before you go on, we do have a resident has had her hand up for a while. Can I just make sure she gets her question answered?
Yes, certainly.
Anne, go ahead.
Thanks, Emily. So I want to thank Jason and Evan and Nicole for being at this meeting today. I know dealing with community is one of those things that you have to do, and it's sometimes not always the most pleasant of tasks. So we appreciate you being willing to come to this meeting and answer our questions. I also want to thank Nicole from the Providence Health System for extending that parking to your workers who are going to be building these houses. The concern that I have is that, to be very blunt about it, we've gotten really spoiled up here in my tiny little dead end street with the pandemic and the lack of traffic coming through our alley. And the idea of 50 construction workers coming through the alley to get to Taylor Street every day doesn't really make me happy. So I would like to know what you all are going to do to encourage them to exit Providence using existing streets rather than using the alleys as cut-throughs.
And the alley you're referring to is the kind of connection right there on 12th that is immediately adjacent to another alley?
No, the alley I'm referring to is the one between Varnum and Taylor in the 900 block.
Okay, got it. Okay, so yeah, let us talk to our head of construction as we put these construction worker parking plans together. The spaces that our construction workers are using are off of 12th Street, right across from our site. So I would imagine they'd be using the Allison and 12th Street location as the entry and exit. But let us talk to them.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate that.
And you got it.
Jason, I sort of threw you off track, and I know there's a couple other
That's all
questions, so I want to make sure you finish doing what you want to do, and then I do see that there's 2 other questions and 1 in the chat.
Yeah, do I have the ability to share? I just want to show the
Yep,
map for
you do.
Housing Council
Yep.
Services. Okay, let me hit share here.
I
And
didn't
then I'll
give it to Evan because you always seem to have control of these things.
so you guys can see my screen now. So this is the map. Obviously the site's outlined in yellow. And it goes basically for the houses fronting the project just across 12th Street down to Upshur. And I'm not sure of the street here on the angle, but it goes up to 14th Street, up South Dakota, and then over on Buchanan. So it's everything in this box is eligible for the tax relief fund as a result of increased taxes that may come from the project itself and the new homes. It's a fund that's in place for HCS to administer until the funds are gone or over a 3-year period. So look for that. If you have any questions, email me. I can put you in contact with the representative at Housing Counseling Services, and we can get you more information, but they'll be sharing stuff
Can you
shortly.
send
that
this to
will go
me?
to the neighborhood. Yeah, I can send you this map as well.
Thank you.
And I think that's it. So, I do see a question here on Webster Street cut through. So within the next several weeks, we'll be starting utilities on the site, underground utilities. And then once those are substantially complete on the Webster Street, we'll be able to start construction of the road. It will take us a couple months to get to that point. And then Webster Street itself, the actual access to the public won't be open until we get to occupancy on our townhomes, which is, about 9 months away, give or take a couple months. It might be a little bit longer than that. So basically the street, needs to be in a condition that's open to the public at the time we receive occupancy, and the first residents need to get through there to access their homes.
Okay.
Okay.
I think Lorenz, that was your question. Do you have a follow-up question?
No, that was pretty much the question. Thank you.
Sure. Tanya, you have a question.
Yes, good evening. My question is in reference to the street closure signs on 8th Street. I find those to be somewhat of a hindrance and instead of a help, because they're so far in the street that they take up a lane. And then especially if you are turning off of South Dakota Avenue to turn onto 8th Street, if there are cars on the other side and the sign is taking that lane up, there have been on many occasions someone has almost, ran into the back of me. And so I'm wondering, can we have those signs removed? Because anybody who comes back here lives back here, because there's really nothing else back here but the home. And I've lived in this area over 35 years. I pretty much lived in this area all my life. And I just find them, they're not effective. And I've talked to many of my neighbors, and we pretty much agree that they're a hindrance.
Tanya, I'm sorry. Those aren't related to the EYA project though, right?
No, they're not.
Yeah,
no, I-
They're on-
I think those are the slow street signs. So can we wait till we get to the DDOT topic and then we'll address the slow streets?
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Tanya. I appreciate that.
No worries.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Okay, so Jason and Evan, do you have any other updates for that? Or does anybody else have any other questions for Jason and Evan related to the EYA project or the truck traffic that's, going to happen and related to that? Jason and Evan, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you all have done to communicate to your truck drivers which streets to drive on, not to drive on. There's a lot of concern about truck traffic on 13th and Sargent and that whole area. So is there a particular route they're supposed to take?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is. Evan, is Lauren on? Do you know? I didn't hear him earlier.
Yeah, I'm
He
here.
is on. Oh, there
Hey,
he is.
Lauren.
Our head of, there you go. Lauren Randall's our head of construction. So he can, why don't I give a quick intro and then he can address our policy. So we remember from the approval process, the sensitivities of trucks specifically on Sargent and 13. I think there are already signs that say trucks shouldn't be on that route.
And more were
but
added recently.
Yeah, but trucks come down there, they're coming down fast, they're coming down the hill. We know it shakes some of the homes and that's been an issue. So our truck management plan uses 12th Street. And we've been, very clear with all of our contractors. Lauren, you can talk about how we manage that and what our policies are.
Yeah, so hi, everybody. So we have a construction management plan that has been communicated to all our contractors. We have pre-construction meetings with each of those vendors and go over that in detail as far as also sequence of construction. And everybody is well aware that they have to use 12th Street for access to the site. There's a construction entrance over there. And we also have field staff on the project on a daily basis. And they are tasked with enforcing these rules. So right now we have a gentleman named Greg Kuzma, who's the senior construction manager. He's out there every single day ensuring the rules are followed. And in about 30 days, a different gentleman will be out there named Luke Carey, who's a construction manager who will be doing the same thing. So we communicate early on what the requirements are. We go over it again during a pre-construction meeting, and then we have somebody on site that's enforcing those rules.
Yeah, and I just put into the chat my cell phone number. This is Evan Goldman. And so the only way we can really enforce this stuff is if we know when it's happening. And so to the extent you do see a truck that is using the wrong road and then coming to our site, feel free to text me. We'll get on it and we'll have Greg talk to the contractor right away. What I will say is so far, because the DC police are out there ticketing, the trucks that have been ticketed have not been ours. They've been other trucks going to other parts of the city because unfortunately a lot of trucks use that as a cut through. So it would be great, instead of just assuming that it's our trucks, kind of just watch and see if they come around the block and come into our site, then we want to know about it. If they're passing our site and they have nothing to do with us, there's little we can do obviously in that regard.
Evan, I know you know Cindy, and I don't think Cindy's on the call tonight, but she's got cameras all over her house and they catch every single truck that comes down there. So if there's ever a question as to whether it's a truck of yours or not, reach out to Cindy because she can verify whether it's one of your trucks or not.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions for EYA?
I did have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead, Ann.
I'm sorry. So, and this may have been covered in a previous meeting. I apologize. How was the size of the tax relief area determined?
The boundary of it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we worked with Housing Counseling Services. The initial idea was to cover houses within about a quarter mile of the site, with the idea that, if these houses result in house prices going up even further within the immediate neighborhood, that we would try to create tax relief. And then what we did was we cross-referenced the map of the houses in the area with income in the area, because the goal is that you have to be income qualified. You have to be earning 50% area median income or lower in order to get the tax benefit. And we wanted to make sure that the 3-year funding, the benefit we were giving, would last for as many families in the district that are low income as possible. And so we bounded it based upon that concept. We also did give the nonprofit that's administering the grant the flexibility that if there's not enough demand within that immediate boundary area, they can expand it beyond that boundary area to the larger neighborhood. So that might happen as well if there's not enough demand.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just FYI, the reason I asked is because my mother lives across 10th Street from us, and she's actually in 5B.
Okay.
And she was outside your tax relief area and definitely qualifies. So
you know,
digging after, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would put her in touch with the housing counseling services regardless, because you just don't know how much demand they're going to end up having within a certain period of time. And that way, you know, maybe she's on a wait list, or they know to reach out to her if they haven't gotten enough response.
Oh, okay, that would be great. Is there a way to get, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get housing counseling services setting themselves up to start administering the grant. They're creating marketing materials that'll get mailed to people's houses. We'll share that with Emily and make sure that that gets out to the community through this venue as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Evan.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions for Evan and Jason? I know this is a big project. I'm sure we will have them back again as things move forward. And I know that everyone has, you know, known to either reach out to me or to Chris. You know, feel free to CC me and Chris and Evan if you want to reach out to any of us. You know, it's helpful if we're all kept in the loop about what's going on. But thank you so much, Evan and Jason, for coming on tonight. And I'm sorry, I forget the name of the other person who was with you tonight. Lauren, right?
Lauren Rand.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. We appreciate you having us, and thanks, Emily.
Thanks.
Go on.
Thank you all again.
So Kelly, this moves nicely into you. So I did want to say thank you to DDOT for getting us some more truck traffic signs on Sargent Road. Where did Kelly go? Kelly, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, sorry. For some getting signs on Sargent and 13th, those hopefully will be helpful. I know that when we met, just to let everybody know, I met Kelly over in that area along with a couple residents a few months ago. And I know we identified a sinkhole in that area. Is that going to be addressed?
I do not have update for that as of yet. I was here to but then I'll look into it. But I have updates for truck issues, and also I can talk about slow streets.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah, if you could find out about that sinkhole and let us know. Obviously with the increased truck traffic, it would be very helpful. Okay. So yeah, so as some of you have noticed, there's the Slow Street program in DC. Ever since the coronavirus hit, they've put in more slow streets. Kelly, I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that and maybe address the concern that that Tanya raised about 8th Street.
Yeah, sure. Slow Street is hi, my name is Kelly Jung Olsen. I am community engagement specialist for Ward 5. And I also live in Ward 5 in Brooklyn. I'm literally 5 minutes away from you guys. So Slow Street is,
So it's easy to get her over here when we need her.
The Slow Street is a pilot program we implemented as a part of our COVID response. So basically this is like temporary program. It's not like we're gonna do this forever, but there's also like nationwide discussion on how we can expand this or continue to do this for certain areas of the city. But nothing has been confirmed, but this is currently as a pilot program, is temporary. So that means once the pandemic is over, those signs will be gone in theory. And it was actually implemented based on the emergency legislation passed by council. So they mandated a certain miles throughout the district because they tasked DDOT to determine which residential area we would like to implement. So that's kind of a little bit of background. So 8th Street, it was also selected based on a lot of community feedback and also our own determination, because 8th Street, we also recently added speed humps because we heard that speeding along 8th Street is an issue. It's a little hill over between Buchanan and Emerson, and also, I mean, it's a highly residential area. So that's one thing we wanted to address. So speed humps were installed, I think, earlier 2020.
Right. Just really quick, Kelly, just to bring anyone who hasn't been at our previous meetings, our SMD worked very hard to get those speed humps here. We had a traffic study done. They did not support our request for speed humps with the traffic study. So then we voted as SMD, and then I brought a resolution to the ANC Commission so that we could get speed humps on that street, because a lot of people were cutting through that street for morning rush hour traffic.
Can I interject on that for a moment? Because we live here off of Buchanan as what they call Newtown. And for decades, we were trying to get speed bumps in our area because this is somewhat like a cul-de-sac, but we also have people speeding on our street. And so when I saw those speed bumps there, I'm like, what?
Yeah, Tanya, we talked about that at a previous meeting as well, and I'm happy to fill you in on that. Unfortunately, we can't get them on Buchanan because of the status of the road. But we are working on some other issues to address that. So why don't you and I talk? If you want to put your phone number in the chat, I'm happy to fill you in on where we are with that.
Okay, sure, no worries.
Thanks. Okay, Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah. So regarding those signs and barriers, I'm sorry. I think it's my turn. So, okay. So regarding those signs and barriers we placed at each intersection is actually located on the parking lane, not in the middle of the street. But I totally understand when you especially make a turn at certain intersection, that means you have to make a full stop to make any turning movement. That's actually one of the main purposes, because we want to make sure the drivers slow down at the intersection whenever they make any movement and whenever they pass that intersection. So what we can offer is that if you can give us exact intersection, if you are worried about, then we can send our inspector to make sure the barrier is located at the designated spot, not like maybe it's moved a little bit further towards to the middle, maybe because of the wind or some other issues. So we can adjust that.
I have a question regarding one of those. Can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So when you're coming on South Dakota Avenue and you're turning into 8th Street, the barrier that is there's a lot of cars that are still going out into South Dakota. So it's very difficult to negotiate. I live in this neighborhood, so I use 8th Street to come home. So it's very difficult to negotiate because a lot of times there's several cars waiting to go into South Dakota Avenue, and there's really not enough space to go around the barrier. And there may be a few other spots throughout the city that may be that way. So that's one of the main concerns. If you have a street that is relatively busier and there's cars already lined up on the other lane, it's only just about one lane available to turn. So you can stop, but it's very difficult to turn because you have to wait till all those other cars exit before you can do any turning. And if you try to turn, you could be trying to create an accident.
Thank you so much. I think it's a good example because that's specific intersection where there's always car coming like each direction. So it may cause congestion. So I just put on my note 8th and South Dakota intersection. So we will move those the barrier close to the sidewalk so that we can minimize those inconvenience.
Thanks, Kelly.
I have a question.
I've got 3 people I've got 2 people with their hands raised electronically, and then I also call you. So, but I wanted to mention one other thing to Tanya real quick. One of the things that we had talked about at a previous meeting, and that I am working on in conjunction with Commissioner Fletcher, is traffic mitigation measures on Puerto Rico, because there's been 2 major accidents on there within the last 6 months. And so we are working on what we can do regarding on Puerto Rico, since that's another source of issue. So just to let you know that. Okay, so I've got Deb's hand up, and I've got Lorenz's hands up, and then who was the other person who had, okay, and then Dottie. Okay, so let's start with Deb.
And I'll be quick because my comment was the exact same as Enrique's. That intersection at South Dakota Avenue and 8th Street, that sign is really intrusive. Anybody trying to turn up 8th Street and cars coming behind you on South Dakota Avenue. I don't care if you come to a full stop. If there are cars sitting at that stop sign, it's a very dangerous turn.
Thanks. Okay, Lorenz.
Okay, so regarding these new signs on Sargent and 13th Street, no through trucks over quarter-ton capacity. First of all, I think I'd like to know if, as the sign is there on Sargent and Emerson, it says just no through trucks. That if we could get that kind of signage up, because that would be a more enforceable signage that would not necessarily require the special police truck unit to have to come out and enforce that, because as it is now, the police says that that's what they would have to do. And so that sign is right there at Sargent and Emerson Street. And they need to be bigger than what they are. Now, with respect to the new signage that you put on Sargent Road, I took pictures and I canvassed the whole area. By the time the trucks get down to Sargent and Allison, they've already violated the signage in as much as they've come in at Sargent and South Dakota. So that's almost a waste. So that's on the north end between the two avenues. That's Michigan and South Dakota on Sargent and 13th Street. On 13th Street, particularly near Taylor, on the south side of Michigan Avenue, leading for 13th Street, their signage says no through trucks. However, if you're going to make a left turn off of Michigan onto 13th going north, there's no signage there. So the first time they see that would be maybe at Upshur Street, and they've already committed to the street. So again, you have all this signage to me, which really isn't well thought out, because by the time coming from the south going to north on 13th, they've already committed onto 13th Street, heading towards perhaps Hyattsville, whatever. But that's one thing. And then there's the signage right there from Allison and Sargent all the way heading south. It's almost a moot point because they've already violated the signage coming onto Sargent Road from South Dakota on south, heading southward. The other day I saw a truck see the big signage on Sargent and Allison, and what did he do? He turned onto Allison Street, even though I have a signage there, so that he could head back out to South Dakota. So I mean, it's somewhat laudable that you're making this effort, but it's almost a moot point, because again, the issue is enforcement. So I recommend that you get some kind of signage that just says no through trucks, period. And that way, I think that would be a more enforceable thing for police to not have to have a special unit dealing with heavy vehicle traffic to enforce that law, as I understand that that's what it is now.
Thank you for sharing. Just for quick clarification, actually, I just had quick conversation with our truck team lead this morning regarding just general truck issues throughout the district. So there's no through truck at all routes in DC, except for like kind of MPS, federal property, things like that. So those signs everybody's seeing in the area, that's our standard form, which means small trucks like package trucks and delivery trucks, those trucks can still use that, but we are really trying to restrict those trucks with over a certain capacity, which is more like, construction and heavy vehicles. So just as one clarification. And I totally understand your point because, you're saying the entering point needs more sign, right? However, MPD also reached out to us saying, even though they understand the current restriction and everything, however, truck drivers often claim that, hey, I don't see signs in this block. It's just my mistake, something like that. So MPD says by having those more signs along those blocks, it's actually helping them enforce more efficiently and effectively. So that's based on, ANC commissioner and also MPD's request. So we added more signs along 13th and Surgeon Road. So
I will add to that just real quick that Kelly, that at the next ANC meeting, like we had discussed when we met, I am in the process of proposing a resolution to put in one of those truck enforcement cameras in that area. So hopefully that will help as well.
Well, right now, as you said, as it is, what's her name? Right there at the corner across the
Christine.
street. Christine, thank you. I mean, she's got cameras all over the place. And the thing about that is we're now almost part-time employees of enforcement trying to, deal with this. I mean, I took a bunch of pictures and I'll send them to both of you, Emily and Kelly, with, exact descriptions of the intersection and whatnot. I just haven't had time to do it because, I mean, I've got a life. I mean, I got other things to do, but, and I'm glad EYA addressed it because for a while they had their construction equipment coming back and forth. But I don't know if Nicole is still on, but I did text her or in the chat that I'm still seeing more rarely, but still there was an 18-wheeler Pepsi truck that came down earlier this week, if not last week. And then I noticed, I followed when I can onto the Providence site, their linen service trucks and things of that nature. So, it's still problematic. And then, but I appreciate your point, Kelly, in terms of enforceability with the signage. So I guess the protocol is still to call 411 and
311.
Well, I thought you said we should call 411.
What's 411?
That's 911 rather. I'm sorry. Well, the emergency hotline, not 311, but what is it? 911. What is the emergency number?
911 is the emergency number. 311 is city services.
Yeah, but didn't you direct us to call 911 anyway, to call for the police to enforce some of these issues?
So MPD said that all calls to MPD, regardless of whether they're being emergency or non-emergency, should go to 911 and not 311.
Right. And that was the point I wanted to make, even though I got my numbers screwed up.
It's okay.
Thanks,
Lorenz. All right, Dottie, you had a question.
Yes, I live at 4438 South Dakota Avenue, Northeast, and behind me there's an alley, and we had a do not enter sign put there that no one should be entering between 7:30 and 9:30 in the morning. And we still have traffic coming down the alley, and not on that, they're speeding. They're making a shortcut to get to Michigan Avenue and 14th Street Northeast. So that's my concern, is the speed of the traffic and traffic coming through between those hours when it's prohibited, based on our sign, do not enter between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m.
Thank you for sharing. That's definitely an enforcement issue. So, but at the same time, I understand that, MPD has also limited capacity, especially the time restriction during the pandemic. I heard that it's even harder to enforce because that's usually for, no more like times and school hours related or work hours related. So I think that's why MPD is maybe not actively enforcing those. But I think Commissioner, you can still reach out to MPDs, but still it
Yes.
says, do not enter. So it's a restriction sign. So it's a violation. So it's an enforcement issue.
So Dottie, just to be clarified, so yeah, so that would go through MPD as enforcement. But I'm happy to work with you and MPD if you want to send me an email. I apologize, Derek from MPD was supposed to be on our call tonight and I don't know what happened, but I'm happy to work with him and you to try and solve that issue if you want to send me an email.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, John, you have a question for Kelly.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to the last point and then also introduce another one. I'm sorry for the background noise. That's South Dakota there, but we have a problem with speeding in the alley at all hours of the day. So it's not just during the times where cars aren't supposed to be entering. That cut through is very popular, and you know, residents of this area have complained that their children want to, play street hockey or something in the alley, and they feel very concerned about having children anywhere near the alley, just because of the frequency of traffic and the speed. So I just wanted to kind of double down there. And then I also wanted to bring up the problem of speeding generally on South Dakota on this block. I live right in front of the radar sign that shows the speed of passing traffic, and regularly see, it's a 25 mile per hour zone, and regularly see 40 plus miles per hour cars, trucks. And recently in the northbound direction, there seems to be a problem with street racing as well later in the evening. So I just wanted to flag those concerns.
And Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but the mayor changed the speed limit to 20, correct?
But that's only for the local roads. So South Dakota is still 25.
South Dakota is still 25, okay.
Regarding alley speeding, so that's one of the things that I heard a lot, especially during the pandemic. And we are aware, but the alley, DDOT cannot install speed humps type of traffic calming measures in the alley. And usually when we receive alley related speeding concern, what we do is, so speed limit in the alley is 15 miles per hour. But I think people just do not know that. So what we do is, if you can give us the exact location and follow with me in an email, I'll just put that on the chat soon. Then we can create a work order to install speed limit signs to remind drivers, and then it's an enforcement issue then. And regarding South Dakota, yeah, I mean, that's also like nationwide phenomenon like these days. I mean, especially during pandemic, it's either so much speeding or congestion, like literally there's nothing in between. So South Dakota, so what we've done so far as DDOT is we have deployed multiple rotational speed camera throughout the South Dakota. I'm not sure which block.
There's not one on that block.
Got it. I mean, yes, we have like multiple along like the stretch between.
They're farther up. There's two of them farther up, but
those
not
are all the rotational units. So we are, based on the data we have, I mean, we try to utilize our resources. So that's another thing we can, flag to see if we can, like, maybe it's time to move that, because you don't want to put one camera for one location for a long time, because drivers know then they will slow down for that spot and then like speed up, right? So that's our strategy, and we are aware of the entire like speeding issue along South Dakota, Rhode Island, North Capitol. Those areas are where we heavily deploy our speed cameras where we can.
Yeah, Kelly, I think that would be great if we can look to possibly move that one that's farther up. It's closer to Taylor. It's past Taylor. I forget exactly where on South Dakota, but if we can look to move one to the other side between Michigan Ave, somewhere between Michigan Avenue and Decatur Street, somewhere in there, because there is a significant amount of speeding in that area.
Yeah, at the same time, TSA, traffic safety assessment, is required so that we can collect data for certain blocks, which takes time. However, if we have data that we can like move faster to relocate speed cameras, so it's required. I can follow with you on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I'm happy to help with that. I can put a traffic study thing if you need me to do that, but if you want to look at the data, we can collaborate on that. That would be great. Okay. Thank you so much, Kelly. Other questions for Kelly around DDOT issues? I'm trying to see if there's anything else in the chat. I thought Ann had a question. She said, why was 10th Street by Brookland, this is out of our area, but since it was asked, why was 10th Street by Brookland Metro chosen for this program? The only legal way to park on the Metro forces all traffic down Newton Street, which is narrow and parked in on both sides.
That's also part, so the one of the things we consider when we determine slow street, it's also connectivity between like metro stations, like major, transportation area. So we started with like certain, metro stops like Brooklyn, Rhode Island. So 10th, I think that is connecting Rhode Island all the way to Brooklyn metro station. That was the main reason why.
Okay, thanks. All right, Deb, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you're going to look at data for your speed camera, I wouldn't stop at Decatur Street because it goes with people trying to make that light at South Dakota and Delafield right by McDonald's too. So they're speeding all the way up.
Yep.
So the entire area needs to be reviewed.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay. Thanks. Other questions for Kelly? Okay, well, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, let's connect about the South Dakota stuff. And I know Kelly is working with some of our residents also, those who live on South Dakota at the corner of Michigan Avenue on traffic signals and traffic issues there. We've been in touch about that just to let people know. And if there's other issues that you have about concerns of, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to work with you and Kelly on those. All right, thank you, Kelly, very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I think Nicole jumped off. I was going to have her talk a little bit more about Providence, but I think she jumped off. So I think I'm just going to double check my agenda again real quick. I'll share my screen real quick. Okay, so we've pretty much covered all of the issues that I had on the agenda tonight. So I do want to open it up for other issues that you want to raise with me. But before we do that, I know because some people will start to jump off. I just want to remind you that the ANC 5A monthly meeting is the fourth Wednesday of every month. If you need to know how to access that meeting, feel free to email me and I'll help you do that. The Michigan Park Civic Association, you have to contact Ralph Buxell. I don't know, to my knowledge, he has not been meeting, but you can contact him if you live in that area and have questions. If you're in North Michigan Park, the North Michigan Park Civic Association is run by Carmen Williams, and I put her email address down there as well. And then our next meeting will be Thursday, May 6th at 7 o'clock. So please make a note of that, Thursday, May 6th at 7 o'clock. I'll leave that up there for a minute so people can write down those. And also, I'm assuming that most of you are, but if you're not on my email list or our Facebook page, the links are down there, but you can also email me. For those of you who don't have it, my email address is 5a03@anc.dc.gov. Again, it's 5a03@anc.dc.gov, and I'll put that in the chat as well. Okay. Are there any other questions or,
Emily,
or comments? Yes. Hi, Ann.
Hi. Before folks jump off, could you just give us a quick thumbnail sketch of what Providence update was supposed to address? I know you wanted Nicole here for details, but could you just add a little bit more clarity to what that was?
Yeah, I actually don't have an update. I was just going to ask her if she had any update.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, they have been talking with various people about what to do with the property, but no decisions have been made yet, as to my understanding. I will make it very clear that they have said time and time again that they do not plan to build residential housing on that property. So it's just a matter of what else they plan to do with that property. They're looking to do it something medical based. But I don't know anything more than that.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I know some other folks had questions in the chat.
Sure. Okay, other questions? What's happening with DPW and leaves? Huh. So DPW, okay, so let me explain what happened. So, and also there's a question about McDonald's, and I can, I actually had a conversation with him today, so I can provide an update on that as well. So the leave issue. So, initially, DPW was planning to only do a limited leaf collection to seniors and elderly residents. They got a lot of backlash about that because they took reservations for that. The reservations filled up. There were a lot of elderly residents who weren't on that. And so they got a lot of backlash from that. And it was not very clear because no one understood why they could pick up trash, but they couldn't pick up leaves. So they reversed course and then changed back to their normal policy where they said that that you could either bag your leaves or leave them at the curbside and they would be picked up. However, that didn't get very properly communicated. I did try and send it out on my emails as best as I could, but it got very confusing for people. Meanwhile, there have been a number of other issues, including the riots and other issues that have delayed, and then now the weather the last couple of days that have delayed them in picking up the leaves. They still say that they are still in the process of picking up the leaves. However, if you have not had your leaves picked up, please report it to 311 and make sure that they are aware of your address, that your leaves have not been picked up and need to be picked up. But that is what's going on with DPW. So I can't tell you more than that. In regard to McDonald's, I mentioned to you that I talked to where did I wrote a note about this somewhere. I talked to the gentleman from McDonald's earlier today, and he let me just see if I can find where I wrote exactly what he told me. I don't know. Can't find it. He said that they were going to be starting construction. They're still waiting on a couple permit issues through the zoning process. But once they get that done, they said it'll take them, the building will be torn down. And it'll take about 4 months to complete. He will let me know once that's going to start, but I don't think it's going to start anytime in the next couple months. They are partly waiting on the weather, but I think they're also waiting for some of the permit stuff. But it should be at least another 2 to 3 months before they start, and then it'll be another 4 months before it's completed. So I hope that answers the question in the chat. Let me just double check the chat before I call on those who have a raised hand. Thanks, Anne, for posting that. She did put in the chat that it does take multiple requests to 311, but it does work. My one piece of advice, anytime you call 311, please make sure you note down the number they give you, the reference number they give you, because if you call back, it's helpful to have that reference number and have a trail of how many times you've called and when you've called. And then if you have trouble still, you can always email me, give me the reference number, and I can try and follow up with it. Rose asked about the library project. Rose, I'm going to defer you to the ANC 5A meetings. They've been giving updates at the 5A meetings, and they did just give an update at the last one. But if you email me separately, I can try and pull up what they shared from the meeting. So if you want to send me an email, I can do that. Deb, you had another question.
Yeah, and just back to the McDonald's question. When we last heard from them, there was discussion, I would say, as to what they were actually requesting. It was our understanding initially when they met that they were only talking about McDonald's proper, and then they switched to including the little strip mall as well.
They're not, it's not the strip mall, it's just McDonald's proper.
So the zoning request or whatever that they made is only for McDonald's.
Correct, but their parking lot, there's another section of the parking lot that they're going to need with the expansion, and I think that's what's considered technically part of the other property.
No, the question that they were well, the statement that they made at one of the last meetings they attended was they were expanding the type of use. And I
Correct.
forget the zone number, but it would have allowed for mixed use on that property that does not exist now. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, there was some confusion about that, and I had asked former council member Harry Thomas to come to a meeting a while back and explain that. Let me see if I can get him to come to our next meeting, or to send me an email with an update. Okay.
Yes.
Question on zoning. Okay, I'll get an answer to that. While Lorenz, I see you, but give me 1 second. While we're talking about the McDonald's, I just want to mention something real quick. The property right next door to McDonald's that houses the Chinese restaurant and a couple of vacant properties, and I know the medical facility that I don't know if they're going to remain open or not with the COVID crisis, but I've been in touch with the owner of that property. If you've walked down that section of South Dakota recently, there's a drainage issue from behind that building, and it's a runoff, and it's running off into the street, and there's a gap between the parking lot of McDonald's and that property, and it's completely filled up that gap, and there's also trash in that, but it's very evident that it's a runoff air issue because there's a pipe leading from the back of that building that the owner is technically responsible for. My first step is to talk to the owner, and we have a call scheduled for actually tomorrow to do that. And my second step, after, if we don't get a response from that, will be to reach out to DCRA because this is a DCRA issue. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And so if you've seen it, maybe you've seen it, but just letting you know that it is on my radar and I am looking to address that. Okay, Lorenz, I'm going to give you the last question.
Well, basically, I just want to make a statement. I mean, here we are in the upper northeast element of the comprehensive plan. And for those who may or may not know, we're one of the city wants to make it such that we all lose our matter of right to challenge, or development would be a matter of right where we lose the challenge, our ability to challenge even request PUDs. That's what I'm hearing. So the comp plan is coming up before this DC City Council. Upzoning is very much a feature, which means, what does that mean? They want to increase density all over the city or wherever they can. And so, we can see that as evidenced by all the development that's taking place just in our 5A. So I'm part of a citywide coalition that other parts of the city have had these issues and they're fighting. And there's some critical concerns that we should be aware of. So I left my contact information in the chat. If anybody wants to get in touch with me to talk about that more specifically. But I would urge our ANC and all of our residents, if you can, to get involved and push back on some of these things, because the city's selling us out to the developers. That's all I got to say about that. That's how I feel about it, and that's what, not just me. It's been documented, and how does that impact with issues of the so-called equity that is being discussed through some of the legislation that even our council member McDuffie is talking about. But there are a lot of critical issues beyond that as well that I'm part of a citywide called the DC Grassroots Coalition, and it's a diverse group of people, and I would recommend that you check it out. So you can get in touch with me if you're so interested. My email is in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorenz. Okay, anything else from anyone else? Okay.
Hey, Emily, there was a question in the chat about Providence and COVID vaccines. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Thanks, I did not. I do know that they were giving them out. There was an email that I had forwarded to everybody about that. If anybody has a question about that, feel free to email me and I will try and pull that information up from my emails. but I do believe Providence is on the list to give out vaccines. And as you all know, our zip code has been a priority in terms of getting the vaccine out to the elderly residents in our community. Dottie, go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say, I got my vaccine yesterday.
Congratulations.
And the only way I was able to get it is through a friend at church who has a contact at Providence. And I think there were only like 4 people or 5 people there when I went. And when I got the vaccine, they even gave me my appointment for the second vaccine. I do have a contact number that I can give you, which would be very helpful, and you don't have to go online to.
Actually, I pulled up the information that was sent to me. So let me reference that. So here's what it says. Providence Health System now offers COVID-19 vaccinations, the Moderna vaccine to all employees, healthcare personnel, and District of Columbia residents 65 years and older in accordance with federal, local, and district guidelines. The Providence Vaccine Clinic is open 7 days a week. To schedule an appointment, please visit vaccinate.dc.gov or call the district's call center at 855-363-0333. The call center is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. When asked to pick a location for your vaccination, choose Providence Health System Urgent Care. Dottie, is that the same number you were given?
I wasn't given a number at the hospital. I was given a number by a person who works there at the hospital. I think she worked with connectors, something with the hospital. But she was saying that anybody who needed the vaccine, I was welcome to give her number.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up. I don't have it right here at hand.
Okay. If Dottie, if you want to get it to me, I can get it out to people.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anything else from anybody?
What I'm just general comment about the vaccinate. My wife and I, we finally got appointments, and we ended up picking turkey ticket was the first thing showed up for May. So I was able to get turkey tickets for next week. But it is rather frustrating because you will get the notice and they said there will be so many slots available at 9 a.m. X day. And 15 minutes so after you start to register, everything is taken.
Yeah.
I was surprised that they were available. I mean, I was crazily rushing through the process when they want to make an in-state, but then you have options. The problem is that you kind of like in the back of your mind, you're trying to get it done fast, so you're gonna pick the first thing you can. I mean, my first tries for turkey ticket, they were not available. After I finished the process, I said it was not available. So I went back and I picked another date and another hour, and then they were available. But it's very stressful. So if you kind of like say, go to, except if they're saying at Providence that their volume right now is low when people are applying, then hopefully that will work out that way.
Enrique, thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I have expressed on several different calls and meetings I've been involved with the city regarding this rollout is that we have a number of elderly homebound residents in this SMD. And I've been very frustrated with how information has only been sent out electronically, and many of those residents don't have access to that. And the other problem is that some of those residents can't get out to go get the shot. And so the city has sort of fallen short in my mind on how they've addressed the issue with those residents. And I've repeatedly brought that to their attention and tried to get results from that. So I know that is on their radar, and I'm watching that very carefully. And Anne, I do see your comment about your mother being homebound. I'm happy to talk with you further about that, but this is definitely something we need to work on. The other thing I want to mention is Rose put a phone number shared with me privately for Providence. It's 202-854-4898. So that number is available as well. Again, it's 202-854-4898. I don't know where that phone number goes, but it is a Providence number. And so
well, that's what someone has shared with me.
Okay.
I didn't know. I gave up on getting a shot from the city. It's just impossible. Every Wednesday, you're informed that there are going to be openings Thursday and Friday. You can get on the phone and then within 10 minutes, everything is gone.
Yeah.
And not only that, I asked them at the call center, what time do you open? And they told me 8 o'clock. I said, well, your letter says that you don't start taking calls till 9.
Right.
How can 1,800 spots be gone in 10 minutes through this system? So it's just a very, I don't think it's a well thought out system of how to get it in there, but the district along with other areas are also encountering the same kind of challenges.
I think the only state that I've heard is doing this well is West Virginia. That's the only state I've heard that's doing it well. I've been asked to repeat the phone number, so it's that I gave for Providence a minute ago. It's 202-854-4898. Okay, Anne, go ahead. Anne, did you have a comment?
No. I do. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting off mute. There was a story on Fox DC maybe a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. I have lockdown brain, so time is a thing. About George Washington's Hillel chapter volunteering their time to help senior citizens in DC register to get COVID vaccinations. So I'm going to throw the link for that in the chat. And hopefully the Channel 5 site will have some information about how to get in touch with them. Just for the record, the barrier for senior citizens across the country to sign up for COVID vaccinations online is ridiculously hard. Yep. The questionnaire in New York City has the qualifying questionnaire online has 50 questions on it. So no one is making it easy, and hopefully this resource will be helpful for folks who are having trouble navigating the digital portion of this.
Wouldn't it have been great if we had a nationwide strategy to deal with this as opposed to a state-by-state strategy? But that's another topic.
I am entirely too sober to have that conversation.
Yeah. And thank you. If you want to email that to me as well, I can also make sure to share that out.
I will.
Thanks. Okay, anything else from anyone else? I'm sure we could talk about the coronavirus issue for hours.
Well, I want to say this, Kaiser seems to have gotten it well. My mother is 94. They notified us and the next day we went down and were able to get it.
That's great. That's great.
I heard the same thing about Kaiser. One of my neighbors, he has Kaiser. He got his shots. And other people that I know that have Kaiser. Kaiser just reached out to their customers and everybody's getting vaccinated.
I will say that Johns Hopkins Health System has reached out to all of their patients and said something similar, but obviously they're doing it in priority order. So I know they've at least reached out to their patients.
Well, MedStar has reached out to its patients, but they're telling you that you're on the wait list. Mm-hmm. Not that you can come in or schedule an appointment. It's just like, do you have an interest? Mm-hmm. So they're putting out feelers, but Kaiser has really taken on those who are enrolled in their care.
Yeah, Kaiser did something special, I guess, because hospital center or MedStar is seem to be linked up with the city, because when you go to select MedStar, I mean, I signed up with them also, and they emailed me something today saying that they still don't have enough slots. They don't have any slots. They'll let me know if more slots, when more slots come up. You know, I tried Howard University, and there was some other issues over there, and then the next time I went to Howard, it's like it was shut down. There was no appointments available. So and it seems like they're saying, some of these hospitals are saying that they're like part of the city system. You know, so maybe Providence has a little bit of a different arrangement. So, and Kaiser obviously has a different arrangement.
Well, if anybody is a veteran and have background there, the military hospitals are also
doing good.
Doing them.
Great information. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All right, well, thank you so much. I think this was a productive meeting. I'm glad we got an update from EYA and about the Public Safety Task Force and the Verizon Tower, and some from DDOT as well. So I will be, as always, I am available. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you know how to reach me. And thank you so much. I by the way, this is the first time we've met, I think. No, maybe it's not. Some of you may not have been on the call. So if you weren't on the call from the end of last year, let me just say thank you so much to those of you who reelected me this year. I'm excited to represent this ANC one more time. And hopefully I will do a good job for everybody. So thank you so much.
You're doing a marvelous job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So thank you so much. And please, my goal this year is to continue to get more people on our email list and at our meetings. So if you have neighbors, please share the information with them about how to join our email list and our meeting information and my contact information. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.